Hi folks, I thought I'd do a little bit of a video about how I like my Reflex diesel stove. I know different people have different techniques, but I'll show you what I do, and hopefully it'll work, with that fingers crossed. This stove is a little bit different to a normal space heater. It's called a cold furnace version because it's actually insulated. If you lift the top on here, instead of a hot plate, you can see it's insulated, but inside it has a little top that I can lift up, and I've made a bit of bent coat hanger there just to hold that up while I light the stove, which makes it a lot easier. And I have scraped out the bottom. The stove has been running for about a week or so, so I've used a little brush here and a bit of metal scraper just to clear out and pinch out some of the material that's in the bottom of the stove, which you need to do occasionally. So I've turned the fuel line on down here. I've left this on 0 at the moment on the fuel regulator, and I've bought myself a really cheap syringe in order to get the right amount of meths that goes in. I use meths, and so what I'm doing is pulling at about 50 millilitres of meths in there, about this kind of amount. It makes it easier to inject that amount into the stove. So I'm going to put that out of the way. I'm going to get my matches ready. I've also put back the retaining collar and the burning element in there that you can see, and I gave that a little bit of a clean as well. So the next thing I'm going to do is to inject in the methylated spirits. So that will run down over the central element into the bowl and to the bowl at the bottom. And this is the bit that causes people some issues, if you like. We're going to throw a little lighted match in here, and this thing's going to start to burn quite quickly, and maybe with some dramatic flames. But I'm not going to try and close this down to bad matches. We're not going to try and close this down too quickly, because it can, without sufficient draft, actually put the meths out. So the most important thing is to keep your head absolutely out of the way. Do not look in there when this happens. Okay, so you can see the flames coming out. It's getting to burn quite well, and I'm going to very gently lower this lid down. Hopefully the mess will keep burning without... There we go. You can hear it now, perhaps roaring up a little bit. Put the top on here. And I can hear the meths burning. So normally I'd leave that about 4 minutes or so. So we may put a little cut in the film at this point and come back later. So the other features here, I've actually got the regulator control that comes on, of the valve that will switch the fuel off, and I've put an additional valve in there as well. So these are both open at the moment. This is the cleaning rod that goes through where the fuel is dripped into the tank, and you need to make sure that's pulled out, of course. But otherwise everything should be okay. In this stove, I've got rather neatly, I can't see, because of the way it's been positioned, I can't see in the window here to see how the flames are going. So I use a little vanity mirror that I picked up in a charity shop. I actually look in the window here and I can see the meths burning away quite happily. And what I'm looking out for after about 6 months of learning how to do this is a red, is the element heating up fairly red hot. And as I say, it's a few minutes just to do that, and then begin to turn the fuel on. And also set the thermocouple so that the fuel will come through. The thermocouple is this. You can't really see it. I don't know whether you can see it with the camera here. It's got a little button. Oops. Thanks, Maura. It's got a little button on here. And what this does, it's got a sensor inside the stove, and if the stove runs away by getting too much fuel in it and gets very, very hot, that sensor will then close down the fuel coming into the stove and close the stove down. But in order to set that thermocouple, it's got to be reasonably warm in there, and you push the plunger in, which sets it, allows the fuel in, and then if the overheat happens, it'll then pop that and shut the fuel down, down that's going into the stove. So I can see the elements starting to become red in there. The meths are burning happily with a blue flame. So I'm going to turn this now around to about setting 2 on the fuel regulator, and I'm going to press down for about 3 or 4 seconds on a button round the back here, which is the thermocouple. Just hold my finger down on that and then gently let it go, and with a bit of luck we'll get some fuel coming into, some diesel fuel coming into the burner. We may see the diesel beginning to kick in and getting a yellow flame instead of a blue flame as it switches over from the meths, and the meths gradually burns out, and hopefully at the point at which the meths burns out, the diesel fuel will have caught light. So you just have to be a little bit patient and watch that. I can see a few yellow flames coming through now. Yep, nice circular blue flame that's there. So it looks like it's lit, which is fine. What I'll do now is leave this on setting 2 for a while. If you turn it up too high too quickly, you'll get too much fuel coming in. It'll burn yellow and may roar away a little bit. So it's best to get this warm. And the way this stove works is by drawing air in at the bottom here, natural draft, and by the flue heating up and getting a really good flow of air coming through, which causes good ignition and plenty of heat. And in this stove, it's got a wraparound boiler in there, right in those hot fumes, and that's where the heating of the water happens. So I'm going to turn on the water pump now, and that's going to start circulating the water around the calorifier and around the central heating system, and start to give us some warmth. So there you go, that's my method of starting the reflex. It's going away well now, so don't be faint-hearted, that's how it works. And I'd be interested to have any comments, or know if you have a different way of doing this. Some people have different techniques, and there are different stoves that behave slightly different as well. So thanks for that, and happy lighting of your reflex.